Whatever you choose to entertain inside the earth suit, what happens? It spills out. Whatever I'm entertaining here, it goes all the way down to my cellular function, and my cells will go one way or another way, depending on my choice of focus. And whatever you focus on grows bigger. Very, 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 very quickly. In less than a 2-year period, I went through a divorce because I was diagnosed 1 week prior to the final divorce court date. I went through a double mastectomy. I went through 16 chemos, 2 years of full chemo, MRSA staph infection, and I had 14 surgeries because of the combination of 6 weeks of daily radiation and additional chemo. They had to do 14 surgeries to graft my back onto my front. Very, very slowly. So now I actually have the excuse that I don't know if I'm coming or going most days. A Native American chief is having a little chat with his grandson. His grandson comes up, and the Native American chief looks at him and says, "Grandson, there are two wolves. Two wolves. They're constantly battling in the head. Constantly battling. All the time, all day long. There's the wolf that represents the light, and there's the wolf that represents the darkness." He's just looking up at him. He's listening closely. And he said, "Tell me about the wolves, Grandpa." So he said, the wolf that represents the darkness gravitates, has an insatiable desire, is like a spoiled child. And the more you feed that wolf, the more it wants. It wants. It needs to own, control, possess, analyze, interpret, conclude. It's fed on greed, jealousy, analyzing, comparison, feelings of inadequacy, lack, and scarcity. And his eyes were real big. He said, "And there's the wolf that represents the light. This wolf naturally gravitates toward what is good, right, beautiful, excellent, praiseworthy, positive thoughts, actions, words, deeds, intonations. This wolf can't get enough of that and will literally hunt looking for those things. And they're always fighting all day long, all night long, inside of your body, inside of your head. Which wolf wins?" And the grandpa shook his head, and he looked down at his grandson and he said, "It's the one you feed. It's the one you feed."
What I learned with my 3 young brothers, you see, because we were related to the king of rock and roll. And Elvis was in Tupelo, Mississippi, not far from our little hometown there in Burnout. But what I learned was that I could have a Cadillac anytime I wanted to. And that's nice to know, folks. And as a young person, I can tell you what we used to do after schools. Is my brothers and I, we learned the importance of confidence, courage, choices, and character. And how we learned those things were very important to us because our grandmother would tell us stories. As I told you, we rode those horses. Well, when I'm your age, and we did that. Now, my horse was named Trigger. Some of you are not old enough to remember this, but Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, anybody remember it? Oh, yeah, okay. My horse was named Trigger. And my brother David's horse was named Spotted Cloud. Now, since The Lone Ranger and Tonto's been out again, remake of the movie. And my brother Terry named his horse Polly. He named her after the Avon lady he was in love with. So anyway, we had those horses. and we would ride them in the afternoons after school. And we would go and let those horses graze, and we would dream about what we were going to be when we grew up. Now, I wanted to be a movie star, and I wanted to do fun things in my life. And my brother David wanted to be a race car driver, and my brother Terry wanted to be an architect. Well, we couldn't hardly pronounce that word at that time, but we thought that's what he wants to do to build stuff fine. But my brother Philip, he had a hard time. He was bullied in school, and some of you may can identify with him, is they made fun of him because he couldn't speak very clearly. But I can tell you about what was important was learning from him. I learned about the tuggings on the heart, and that's important in life, into making those decisions. And we tried to encourage him to not be, at that time we didn't call it bullying, we called him picking on him. Not to worry about those folks, that didn't really matter. It was about the acts of kindness. Elvis, I learned a lot about growing and building my confidence, because he was just a poor old boy from Tupelo, Mississippi, that he told his mama too, and his grandmama, he was going to build them a big house, Les, and he did. And he told my grandma Minnie that he was going to get her a big red wingback chair and put in her room at Graceland, and he did. You see, my grandmother Alice and Elvis's grandmother Minnie May, that I'm named after, Edith May, were sisters. So I had the privilege of hanging out with him in those years. And what my grandmother Alice taught me, the most important thing, was about the power of the word. And she gave me this book of the Velveteen Rabbit. And what I loved about this, guys, is that she taught me about what being real was. It doesn't matter if you're 14, if you're 44, or you're 64 around my age. I can tell you that what is real, asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle? Real isn't how you're made, said the skin horse. It's a thing that just happens. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked the rabbit. Sometimes, said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. But I tell you what I learned the most was about the manners of being kind and gracious and being genuine.